Hey everybody. Well, welcome to All Things Music, episode 51 today. Man, I'm just doing a informal kind of chat today. But the topic is rekindling your passion for what you do. I see a lot of people that are in bands for years, or they've been playing an instrument for years, and they start to say they just don't feel it anymore. That spark is gone. And I find, as a nostalgic kind of person by nature, when I go back through my verses, I was studying my Bible. When I go back through like photographs, I've had write-ups in different magazines and other things. I've got a box that I keep, a shoebox of cassette tapes from the first 15 years of playing, especially the first 10. Even, I was blessed to be able to have recorded some of the church services that I played on Saturday nights as their drummer full-time from 95 to 2000. But there's things that you can do like that. You can go back through and listen to, if you have recordings like I do, going back and playing them. Look at pictures from when you started, think back to that. How exciting it was when you first got your instrument and you picked it up for the first time, and it was so cool. You wanted to carry it everywhere with you and show the world, I'm a musician. I play the guitar, and here's my axe. When I was in high school, I carried my drumsticks with me all the time in a practice pad. Just a little pocket one that I could throw in my backpack. But I keep a bunch of music with me a lot now in a journal that I can play anytime. I've got my chord charts and from early on, my tabs. But I can open up to a page and play a song. I've written somewhere around 50 originals, a few parodies, and they're Christian parodies, like Apologetics. Check them out too if you get a chance. They're really cool. APOLOGETIX. But and it's, you can look back and see what you've done, where you've gone, the experiences you've had. And you can always, human nature is to think back on the negative things, the bad things, but I always prefer to think back to the good. My dad was sick in 89 and 90. He had cancer. We were living in Arizona. We moved out there in 82, Phoenix, and he got sick with cancer. He smoked 3 packs a day since I was a kid. And, we had an opportunity to come back and visit our family in New York, central New York. And we did. And I got to see my mom again. My brother had been living with her. He came back to live with her full time in 87. There was a lot of problems in the family. My brother was slow. But, he came back to live, and I was going to follow, but it was just taking time for some reason. And, so we got to visit, and I really wanted to stay. I had a great time. I had music. They play music in Arizona on the radio. That, new music out there that takes months to get back and before it shows up on New York radio. I don't know why that is. It still happens. I still listen to 98 KUPD online. They're like K-rock, but even a little bit more. They go back to like the 80s and 90s metal. Um, but anyway, so I go back there too. But when I first came here, and my mother was living with my aunt, and I stayed in my brother's bedroom, and we would stay up all night eating candy, listening to music. He would show me what he's been listening to, and I would show him what I've been listening to. And we always shared a bedroom growing up, so we would share tapes back and forth. And, you know, last time you put your tape on, this time I'll put one of mine on. And, we loved listening to the radio to go to sleep because we always had dad playing in bands when we were young, so we got used to having something. So we would put music on to go to sleep. And, high school, music is a big thing. We're all into the new bands. Um, but, staying with my brother that winter was awesome. We shared music, we shared magazines, Circus magazine, Metal Edge, Hit Parader was out. Circus was one of my favorites. My brother-in-law actually brought me a whole box of them, and a lot of them I remember having and reading. So, it's nostalgia. But I think back to those things. And then when I first, 1990 came around and it was like time for me to come. Because my dad was going to die, and we knew that. He wasn't doing good. And he ultimately did in 91, but I got to play drums for him on the phone. I put in my book that he fought me on that and said I would never be able to because of being in a wheelchair and my range of motion and whatever. And I got to play for him, and that was the first time I ever heard him cry. I mean, he really felt bad for, not giving me an opportunity younger. But I started when I was 19, and I'm okay with that. And whatever. But, I was just awesome to be able to play for him because I really looked up to him as a musician all my life. But, I moved back in July 19th of 90. And, things weren't really great in that living situation in Arizona. So, my dad put me on the plane himself. He knew he wasn't going to make it. And they let him take me to my seat and put me on the plane. He said, you know what? Get your life together. Get your brother, move out, get an apartment. He knew life with my mother was going to be difficult because he was married to her. And, he said, you're free now. And he put $20 in my pocket and said, I love you. And he never said that. But he buckled my seatbelt, and I knew I wasn't going to see him again. And I didn't. I found out that he was reading his Bible. And so, who knows? Maybe I will see him again. But, I think back to that was kind of sad. I mean, he ran to get me to my flight because he knew that it was important for me to get out of there and get back to New York because he was not going to be long for the world. But, I got back to New York, and then I lived with my mom and my brother for a bit. But at that time, I was really into Metallica. And, 1980s Metallica, the first 4 albums, was really good. They weren't profane. A lot of it was socio-political concepts. The music was heavy, but it was good. And the lyrics were about things that were real to life. Like the death penalty and how justice gets perverted by corrupt people. And, mental illness and child abuse. I think there may have been one word on one album that was profane. But, they really they weren't into that. They were just into playing music and having fun and making money. And I got to hang out with Kirk Hammett. And, I've got a signed ticket. He took me backstage. The band invited me backstage at a concert back in 94. And he had me sit with him for a few hours one night backstage, and he is one of the nicest people. I've had the opportunity to talk to him. He actually asked for one of my tapes of my band, and, we were still young yet and had some gigs on the local radio show where we were the house band in the morning. Joe Satriani, but much heavier style instrumentals that we were doing. And we meddled up some classical stuff too, really bizarre. Anyway, But you get to think it back, and it's like so awesome. So then, like when I go now, and I remember getting like the Metallica box sets, the DVDs, and the videos. And my brother was big into Queensryche and Dokken and old Aerosmith, and he had his thing, but Queensryche was a big one for him. And so he got box sets of them, and we would watch. There was a show called Headbangers Ball. I wasn't a Christian yet, so. But I mean, it wasn't anything like vile. It was just for heavy music, people that liked the heavier music on MTV. So Saturday night, we would get snacks and whatever. My mom usually worked overnight, so we would get snacks and we would watch 12 to 3 at Bangers Ball, and have our snacks, and then we would go to bed. And we did that, until it kind of died off, mid 90s or so. But I would watch the Metallica stuff, and then I got my first drum set. My mom got it for me, and she wasn't always the greatest, but she encouraged me with that, and I really, I do admire that. She did that. She did encourage me. She got me my first drum set, a Yamaha electric, but I started learning the Metallica songs, and that's how I learned to play. Because nobody would teach me. They looked at me and they're like, well, don't waste your money or your time. You'll never play. 20 years later, 20, 30 years, man, time flies. And I look back at my pictures, my hair was down to my waist in high school. And I'm thinking, I've toured. I've been in the studio, I've written albums and recorded them. I've been the house band on the local radio. I was a house band for a classic rock club in Forestport, New York. I've done a lot. I've done drum teaching lessons, private lessons. I filled in on other people's albums. I co-wrote an album for Shared Madness with another guy. He played keyboards and sang. I played drums and sang and bass, although we primarily kept it to drums and keys. And we wrote a whole album of really cool stuff, obscure stuff. Anyway, we're running out of time. But, and I said I would kind of rant today a little bit. But, when you start feeling like it's a chore to pick up your instrument, or to write, or to sing, or to go to the next gig, or the next band practice, think back to how much you loved looking forward to getting that instrument in your hands. You'd sit in school all day and think about, my drum kit at home, where it's positioned, and, I had a big window behind me in that room. It was huge. So anybody walking through the yard would see me playing, and the light would come in and shine on the cymbals, and it was just so cool. Especially in the summer of '91, when I got my Tama 5-piece, which I had for almost 20 years. And then I switched over to D-drum, which I'm playing now, and I really like those. But, you think about your instrument waiting for you at home. And sometimes kids would bring their guitars and things to school and just carry them around. Play every opportunity they could at breaks, at lunch, whatever. But think back to that. And if you have pictures, if you have old magazines, your first cassette tapes or albums that you liked and wanted and got, go back and listen to those and look at your old pictures and think back to how awesome it was and exciting when you first started. There's that thing in theology too where it says that, we get going to church, we get hanging around other Christians, reading the Bible, listening to music that, Christian music, and it gets stale. It shouldn't. We gotta get back to our roots and where we started and how on fire we were. The same applies for music. Revisit those old things. Think back to the great memories, awesome shows, people that you especially liked playing with, people that maybe you met, or opportunities that you had that were really cool. Let me know what you think, and let me know what kinds of things that you reflect on that really stir you up inside when you think back. What was your first album? Mine was Kids Alive too. I got that in kindergarten. I was a Kiss fan. The first original lineup. And from there it was Blondie, and in the 80s, Quiet Riot was a big one, and Metallica. And they got to be favorites, Guns N' Roses, all kinds of bands. What do you guys think? What was yours? And what were your things that you think back on um, when you think back on the good things? What's a great opportunity that you had or experience that you had? And also, what instrument do you play? Leave comments. Let me know. God bless you guys. Thanks for watching. I'll be back Wednesday. Have a great rest of the weekend.